and smoking his political trap. Michael Vass roars through the screen, he flies, painting red and blue skies with his fiery cry. He's the world's watchdog, calling out the bluff. Right-wing swagger, but his heart's pretty tough. He's a Republican dragon with his truthful slight, fights the battles unseen in the shadows of the night. From policy to passion, he breaks it all down, giving a voice to the voiceless, wearing his crown. Caffeine-fueled mornings, the smoke curls dance, Puffy at his feet, giving life one more chance. Through algorithms and bias, he cuts straight and clear. Michael's roar echoes in the hemisphere. Michael Vass roars through the screen, he flies, painting red and blue skies with his fiery cry. He's the world's watchdog, calling out the bluff. Right-wing swagger, but his heart's pretty tough. No sound bites allowed is his ultimate creed. A dragon's perspective where facts are the seed. Standing tall on his battlefield of thoughts, guarding the truth that others forgot. Michael Vass roars through the screen, he flies, painting red and blue skies with his fiery cry. He's the world's watchdog, calling out the bluff. Right-wing swagger, but his heart's pretty tough.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us. This is No Soundbites Allowed. I am your host, Michael Vass, the political dragon here in our offices in the Bronx, New York. Today is November 19th. It is currently 7:17 in the evening, and I'm thanking you for joining me in the middle of the week. I appreciate each and every one of you and your time. So we're going to jump right in there because we don't expect to be on long. It's middle of the week. I know there's a lot going on. There's a lot actually going on. But I want you to understand, for those who are new to the channel, what we do is we reach out because we believe in the First Amendment. We believe in your right to be able to speak about the issues that affect you no matter where you are in the world, because it is a fundamental right by birth. It is not some power given to you by government or the UN. And because of that, I want to hear your voices. This is a conversation. It's not me just talking to you. It is a conversation with you. And I look forward to seeing your comments in the chat. And whether or not any government may like this or not, whether or not the internet overlords like it, we have been doing this for 20 years and we are not going to stop. We're going to keep talking to you about the issues that matter because the news media, they won't. All right, so we're going to jump right on into everything today. I do see that there's already a comment out there, and that's from John Lashcombe. Thank you, John. And he is supporting the channel, and I really appreciate that. I want everyone to remember that between now and December 31st, 2025 at midnight, every single dollar that we are able to raise, every dollar that we receive as a donation, whether it's at the Patreon, whether it's with our PayPal, whether it comes out of Zazzle's store where people can buy mugs or T-shirts and sweatshirts, or whether it's a Super Chat or a Rumble Rant, we are going to give 50% of the net proceeds of everything we are able to raise between now and the end of the year. In January, we're giving it to the Jericho Project to help homeless, to help families, and to help veterans, because I don't believe Zoran Mandami will be able to do it. I know for a fact that government has not been able to take care of the problem, and I'm putting my money, and with your help, your money as well, behind my effort to help these people. I've been homeless before. I know what it's like to be out in the cold. I know what it is to be hungry. And I do not believe that Zoran Mandami, Democrats, the government in general, I don't believe they're going to solve the problem, because they don't solve problems. They just push it down the road. Well, I, in 2026, will do more, and I will continue to do more to help those people in need. I hope you will support the channel. And if you can't afford $1.50 for the Patreon, or you're not able to do any monetary amount, just hit the subscribe button, maybe even the share or the like, and that will help us to. We want to get to 2,000 subscribers. We want to get $2,000 raised for the Jericho Project, January 26, 2026. Okay. And I have to say that because YouTube's not going to say it for me. They don't like me because I'm a black Republican, and I kind of break their minds. Their world disappears over at YouTube and Google. It's like he's a black conservative for 20 years. It happens. And by the way, there it goes. John Lashcombe actually jumped in. And John, I really love your support. Thank you so much. John came in with a super chat of $19.99. And that 50% of that, $10, is going to the Jericho Project. We are raising money every time I do a show, either on Wednesday or on Sunday when I do my live streams, that we're raising money, and we're going to raise even more. And I thank you, John. I thank you for helping the homeless and helping families and veterans. Thank you so much for that. Okay, so I'm going to get into the show now. And I guess there's a few things that are happening. They're not really getting a lot of attention right now. Obviously, there's the Epstein files. I'll talk about that in a moment. And we were talking a little bit about it on Sunday. And I think there's an aspect of that most people aren't looking at. And I'll mention that in a moment. But let me start off simply with something entirely different that really has gone overlooked, I think. You guys can tell me if I'm missing something or if there's a story out there that I didn't hear about. But what you can see on the screen right now, this is from Bloomberg News. Donald Trump, about 2 weeks ago, floated the idea that he wants to give a $2,000 check to most Americans, those who filed taxes, to give them a $2,000 check, except for those at the highest incomes, the top 1%. But everyone else would get a $2,000 check, and that's being funded by the tariffs that we were told would destroy our economy, that they were going to cause 50% inflation on everything that we use and everything that we need, that it would destroy the U.S. economy. That was back in April. March and April, we were told these tariffs would destroy everything. Well, now it's November, and it hasn't destroyed everything, and everything hasn't failed. And there's more data now than we had then. Then it was an idea in March and April. And now we have the facts. And the facts are telling us a very different story than the left-wing news media that wanted Democrats to win in every election. They have a bias, and their bias has blinded them to a very key fact. Tariffs are meant to create business. That's the whole point. The tariffs are there to change people, turn them from buying foreign goods, things being made in China, and to buy things made in America instead, and to encourage people who are in America to build a factory, to build a manufacturing plant, and make things here in America and sell them around the world. That's the point of tariffs. That's why every country has tariffs. All of them do. And there are various amounts, but we all have them. And it's always to promote that home nation, to improve its economy by building up its infrastructure. And if you've noticed, going back to Obama, actually going back to Clinton, we've been talking, every president, every Congress, most pundits are regularly talking about the U.S. infrastructure. We need to rebuild it. Our nation is falling apart, and we need to rebuild that. And one of the ways to do that is tariffs. It makes it more expensive to get something from overseas versus here in the United States. And if someone in the United States will make that, it will make more businesses, more jobs, better pay here in America. And it's been working. It has been working. And that's why we've already raised enough money, over $500 billion by many estimates, and that's going to be able to give every single American a $2,000 check. That sounds great. I know a lot of people are very, very happy about that. I'm not. And I know that may surprise a lot of people. I'm not happy about the $2,000 check. I mean, yeah, it's going to be great for the 2020 midterm elections. I know it'll help Republicans get reelected and to hold on to the House and the Senate. And that's usually why we see these kind of checks. They usually happen right about when we get into an election season, right when people are going to be voting on something important, midterms and presidential years. It's a tactic that Democrats and Republicans have used consistently for decades upon decades. That's not my reason why I'm against it. It's not because of that. It is buying votes. Both parties do it on a regular basis, but that's not my reason why. I think, and there are others like Senator Thune in the United States Senate who agree with me, and I've been saying this for a while now, that we should not get a check. It should be used to pay against the United States debt. We have over $38.1 trillion in debt for our nation. And that numbers by 2030 is expected to go to $44 trillion. Now, that is down from the Biden administration, where we were expecting by 2030 to have between $50 and $52 trillion in debt, because Biden was spending money like a drunk sailor, or more accurately, whoever was in charge when the part-time zombie President Biden was asleep, whoever was running the country for 18 hours a day, they were spending money ridiculously. And the Bidenomics program, it failed. Utterly, entirely failed. And we had 22% inflation at the peak, and the average inflation was 17%. Right now, inflation's 3%. 3.5%. That's not comparable. That's actually, we always want to have 2% inflation, but we have 3 to 3.5. That's pretty reasonable. That's not a big deal. Again, it hurts everyone's pocketbook. That's true. The thing that's really hurting the pockets is that we keep spending money. And as much as I'm glad that we got rid of the shutdown, and we opened up the government again, we're spending more money than we're just printing more and more money. That is a problem. We can't keep doing that. It is inflationary. So we need to get that debt down. Since the size of the government, it has shrunk under Donald Trump. He has shrunk the size of the government about 2 to 5%. And that's good. That means we're saving money, but not enough. As much as we're happy with Doge and it was making cuts, it didn't make enough cuts. We need to reduce the size of government by about 10 to 15%, if we're being honest. And that's in the best interest of our, not only today, but into the future. Our kids, our grandkids, they're not going to be able to afford things if we don't reduce the size of government and reduce the national debt. John Thune agrees with me. And we should take the roughly $500 billion, these numbers are ridiculously large, $500 billion that have been raised because of the tariffs, and we should spend that on the debt. We should pay down our debt. It's just like if you had a mortgage in your house and you won the lottery and you got an extra check. You should be using that money to pay down on the principal of your mortgage or your car loan or your college loan. You should pay that down so that your interest is lower and you can pay that debt off. And this would be the first time, realistically, this would be the first time that we're actually paying off the debt. Now, I know some Democrats will say, well, no, you misunderstand because Clinton did it. He zeroed out the national deficit 1 year, and we had no debt. He's the only president that's done that in modern history. That's not true. That's a lie. What Clinton did back in the 1990s, I think it was 1992 or 1993, what he did is he changed the way that he was counting the money. He assumed that people would eventually, this is back when we had the dot-com bubble, when everyone was just really getting online, the internet was just flourishing, and everyone was saying that every business would give up their brick and mortar stores and they would do everything online instead. And we really didn't understand the logistics of having a store and how things would cost. So what we saw is that we have prices in the stock market were skyrocketing. People had a lot of paper wealth, but they didn't have real wealth. They weren't selling, they were holding on because it was an investment and it was going up. So people were sitting on paper with huge profits, and the government under Clinton said, "Oh, well, I'm just going to pretend that you sold everything," and assuming that if you sold everything today, there would be no debt, no national deficit for that year. And so he looks brilliant. He didn't actually make any money. The government didn't actually get more in taxes. They just did an accounting error that did nothing. So he lied. That's the end of it, is Clinton lied to you. This is the first time potentially that we can actually pay down the national debt. And that would have a real impact. It would actually reverse what we have been seeing happening for the last half century. Your dollar would actually be worth more tomorrow if we pay down the debt than it's worth today. That's important. You would actually be able to buy more tomorrow if we paid down the national debt than what you can buy today. And the way we're going right now is every day you can buy less and less with each dollar. In fact, I can't really think of anything you can buy with the dollar anymore. At one point, you used to be able to do that. I used to be able to get a pizza slice for 55 cents. Today, the plain slice costs $3.50. You put on one topping, it costs $5.25. That's ridiculous. That's how expensive it is. That's inflation. And that's under Democrats and Republicans alike. We are spending too much money. And so when you see this, this is from the Hill. Usually we go left wing, but the left wants to have everyone get a check. They want people to get a check. They want people dependent on the government. They're just upset that Donald Trump is the one doing it. So the left right now is trying to figure out a way to say that the $2,000 tariff check is actually not only a good thing, but it's their idea. It isn't. It has nothing to do with the left. They told you that the economy would be in a depression at this moment. They lied to you. And so let's throw them out. But what we're seeing from the Hill, they're talking about right now, Senate Majority Leader John Thune out of South Dakota. He says that he thinks that it would be better to take the money and pay down on the debt. He says, I've seen reporting on it and the suggestion about it, Thune said. I've also heard suggestions that they would apply any tariff revenue to debt repayment, which I think is a really good idea. So we'll look forward and await any suggestions they have. Now, I get it. People want checks. They want cash. Everyone wants that. It's one of the reasons that some people voted for Joe Biden back in 2020, because he promised to give out a $2,000 check to everyone. He didn't. Again, he lied. But that being said, it's that he was giving free money. Remember the Obama checks that everyone was very in love with, and that helped Obama get elected, the Obama check. But it hurts. It hurts us in the long run. And I think, and you guys can tell me, Mike, I think you're wrong. I'd rather have the check. And to be fair, if Donald Trump sends out a $2,000 check and it hits my mailbox, I'm cashing the check. Why? Because the money's already been spent. If he actually gives us a $2,000 check, the money is already spent. You might as well cash it because it's already added to the inflation rate. So too late to do anything then. And if you do get a $2,000 check, maybe take $100, donate it, help me to help the Jericho Project, or give the money to the Jericho Project directly if you don't want to give it to me. That's fine. But help them to help the homeless. I'm perfectly fine with that. And if I get the $2,000 check, I'll probably take half of it and I'll give it to the Jericho Project myself. But here's the thing. I'm just looking at that aspect. But remember, you were told explicitly by the Democrats that this would never work. You were told that businesses would go, almost every small business would be out of business, that they couldn't afford this, that every price would skyrocket for you. That's not true. Some things are more expensive. Yeah. There is 3% inflation. Yeah, a little bit higher than normal. They didn't skyrocket. Under Biden, they skyrocketed. I know most people don't remember the past. They forget what happened under the prior president. But your prices were skyrocketing. We had 22% inflation. Eggs were $12 a dozen, if not higher, across the entire country. Today, eggs are about $2.70 for a dozen, on average, across the country. Is that higher than what it has been in the past? Yeah, it used to be about $1.65. So it is more expensive, but it's nowhere near as expensive as it has been. The price has come down. But we can do better. And the tariffs are working. We can see it right here from ABC News. Came out today, this morning. ABC News had to admit that the trade deficit, one of the big things that helps to also add to the national debt, is the fact that we import more than we export, and it costs us money. We lose money that way. More money is going out of the country than coming into the country. That's bad for our economy. We want it to be the reverse, that it's more healthy, and that helps to hold down inflation. Well, guess what? We see that tariffs, since they have been put into effect, we've seen a 24% decrease in the trade deficit. 24%. That's 1/4. That is effective. That is working. That is a positive for every single American. And this should be bigger news. Under any other president, at any time of their presidency, this kind of economic news would be heralded as great news, that this is a positive for the entire nation and the U.S. economy. This would be happy news. And instead, no one's really talking about it. You're not really hearing this at all. This is a big deal. The tariffs are working. We are buying more American. There are more businesses being built and more Americans are being employed in these small businesses as we speak. It is being more effective. More Americans have more money in their hands to be able to pay some of their bills. Now, is it enough? No, absolutely not. This is not, we haven't turned the corner and everybody's happy and excited. It's the start of an economic windfall. This is the start of recovery. It takes time. We have been under my estimation, based on the classic definition of recession, we have been in a recession pretty much straightforward since August of 2022, when they changed the definition of what is a deficit, because it looked bad for Democrats, it looked bad for Biden, so they changed the definition. That was also the same month they changed the definition of what is a man and what is a woman. And they made it into, well, a man is not a woman and a woman is not a man. Yeah, they were doing that kind of stupidity, and they did the same thing for a recession. They changed the definition so that they could lie to you. Well, this isn't a lie, because ABC News would not tell you this unless it was definitive fact. This isn't bluster from the Trump administration. This is definitive fact, because ABC would love to tell you that the tariffs didn't work, that the trade deficit increased, the national debt increased, blame inflation on Donald Trump, and try and help Democrats to get reelected in 2026. That's what ABC wants. They can't, because it's not the truth. It is so far from the truth that they had to publish this and tell you. Now, mind you, they don't have to promote the news. They published it, and then they buried the news. They moved on. They don't want to give any credit. No positive news that comes out about the Trump administration is something that the mainstream news media will repeat. They'll announce it because they have to, because it's a fact. And then they will bury the story with any other news they possibly can and just ignore it, because they want you to believe Orange Man bad. They want you to feel bad. They want you to be afraid. They want you to vote Democrat. If anyone disagrees with me, I'm happy to hear your voice. I'm happy to have this discussion with you. But this is economic news, and this is factual. And I know it's numbers, and everyone hates numbers. I'm trying to make it to make as much sense as possible. I know when you tell people numbers, a lot of people get confused, or they can't visualize it. But I'm trying to make it clear to you that while nothing is perfect right now, we are recovering from how bad things were before, and that can lead to better things in the future, especially if we take the money that we're getting from these tariffs to pay down the debt, which is pretty much the original idea, that we would pay off our national debt. That means there's less inflation. More people will be able to borrow money from banks and use their life savings to build a new business, to sell the things that people aren't buying from overseas. And that it's a long-term effort. It is a 5-year program. Don't kid yourself. This is not stuff that's going to turn around in the next 6 months. It's not. I've been saying it since 2024, if not 2023. This is a long-term process. The media wants you to think it's supposed to happen immediately. It's supposed to happen tomorrow. They're lying to you. That's not how it works. They know as well as I know, as well as anyone who's worked in finance. We all know, and I've been a stockbroker, was there for almost a decade. We know these things. This is a long-term plan. It is a long-term investment into America. You aren't going to see all of the returns, the real impact, for years. This is a 5-year plan, if not 10, not a 6-month plan. So I just wanted to make sure everyone understood the nature of that. We're going to move on, because I know everybody hates to talk about numbers. I get it. But it's an example of the things that you're not being told that are affecting your life, that's affecting the entire globe. That these tariffs are being used not just to improve America, but also remember, these tariffs are also being used to end wars across the world. Six of the wars in the world that were in the war, 6 nations, or rather 6 conflicts that were going on in 2025 were ended in part because of the tariffs and the pressure that was being used by President Trump through those tariffs. A great example of that was Thailand and Cambodia, and also India and Pakistan. And President Trump said, look, if you want to keep having this fight, if you're escalating, you want to talk about nuclear weapons, fantastic, but the United States will crush your economy. We will not only have these tariffs, we will add even more tariffs on, and your economy will be cratered so that you won't be able to afford to have a war. And both nations, and he said, it's not just one nation. He wasn't picking India or Pakistan. He said it to both nations and said, I'll crush both of your economies at the same time. No one's going to get an advantage or have leverage. You'll both be crushed. Have peace. And that was part of the reason why India and Pakistan ended their war. And that's something that only America could do. No other nation could say that. No other had the economic influence on trade and business that America does that was able to stop that. And trust me, if you remember, go back, I was doing the coverage of the India-Pakistan escalation, their little mini war. Every country in the world was trying. No country could succeed. None. Not until the United States stepped in and used the leverage of the tariffs. So they're not as bad as you think they are. Okay. Let me move on. By the way, again, this is a conversation. If you think I'm wrong, if you think I've missed something, let me know. I'm happy to have that conversation. I've been corrected before. Hal Stewart, who wrote the intro song, fantastic. He corrects me from time to time. He challenges me. I have no problem with that. You can do it too. I look forward to always love having comments from you guys. So let me move on a little bit to something else. Again, we're not going to be on that long. I know people are used to me doing 5-hour, 7-hour shows. Not on a Wednesday night. Not on a Wednesday night. We're looking at like an hour, 2 hours max. And it depends on how you guys are talking with me, conversation. So I also, obviously, there's the Epstein list. And everyone's now talking about the Epstein list. And you can see this here. This is from 2024. This is this is important. Because the mainstream news media today is telling you that Trump was forced. Chuck Schumer was just on Twitter talking about how he had to force Republicans. He forced Trump. No one would dare back down to him. He put a challenge and said, you have to vote for the Epstein files being released. This is on Twitter from Chuck Schumer. And he said, and I confronted all the Republicans, and they all voted to to release the Epstein files because Chuck Schumer made them do it. Because he's some kind of hero. He's fighting. He's fighting with Trump. He's fighting with Republicans, and he's winning. He's a liar. He is an absolute, abject liar. Let's start off with something that's really important in this. In 2024, this is from The Telegraph. And by the way, if you're searching for it on Google, which I typed in Trump Epstein 2024. That's all you have to type in. By the way, you will find this article on the 4th page of the Google search. They buried this story. They have buried this. They do not want you to see this. And by the way, on the 4th page, this is the only reference to what Donald Trump actually promised on the campaign trail. They buried it so that they can tell you that, oh no, it's the Democrats that are making Trump do this. It's the Democrats that are trying to release all the Epstein files. No, they aren't. They had 4 years under the Biden-Harris administration. At any point in those 4 years, they could have voted and tried to release the Epstein files. They could have done exactly what Trump is doing right now. They could have done it then. They didn't. You know, you hear Chuck Schumer, Senator Chuck Schumer's talking about, oh, I got the Epstein files released. Then why didn't you do it 4 years ago? Why didn't you and Nancy Pelosi get together and force it through Congress? You could have done it. You didn't have to wait for Donald Trump. But the fact is, they didn't want to. The Democrats were hiding this as much as they could, and they have stonewalled it as much as possible. And it was Donald Trump. This is from September of 2024. Trump promises to release Epstein client list if he wins the election. He's going to release the documents. Now remember, in February of 2025, Donald Trump did issue the order to Pam Bondi publicly saying, release the client list, release all the lists. He did say that. Now, Pam Bondi screwed up, no doubt. It almost cost her career. She screwed up and we didn't get a client list. In fact, we were told there's no formal list. There's just a lot of documents. And we know that several New York attorney generals sent over a couple of trucks full of paperwork so that It would confuse and delay the process of releasing anything and everything about Epstein. But Republicans were in favor of this, some of them, not every Republican. But Republicans overall were more favorable about this. The rank and file Republicans were absolutely ecstatic about this. This was part of what people voted for in 2024. They wanted Donald Trump to release the information because Democrats wouldn't do it. The part-time zombie Joe Biden wouldn't do it. Kamala Harris wouldn't do it. Chuck Schumer would not do it. Nancy Pelosi would not do it. Hakeem Jeffries would not do it. They're trying to take credit today, but the fact is they had 4 years, they wouldn't do it. They're lying to you, and they're counting on the fact that you don't remember. They're trying to take credit for something that they actually were the problem, not the solution. That's why I wanted to show you this. Because the mainstream news media isn't mentioning this. The mainstream media and all of the Democratic politicians, they're not reminding you that you voted for Donald Trump to do what has happened already, to get the Epstein files released. I just think it's important that we have this truth. And I'll show you what I mean, because it's funny. So I just showed you The Guardian, where they're telling you Donald Trump promised to release the files. Now we have today, this is from today, Trump to sign bill to compel release of more files related to Epstein. Trump doesn't need to be compelled. This was his idea. This was something he promised, and it is yet another of his election promises that he is coming through on. Was it delayed? Yes. Was it perfect? No. Should it have been this difficult? I don't think so. But this is the promise that was made to the American people, and this promise is coming true. And Democrats are pissed off because for a good 3 months there, they thought that they could just say, see, Trump he's hiding the Epstein files. He's guilty. He's a bad guy. It's Orange Man bad. Yeah, Orange Man bad is the one who said, I'll release the files. Orange Man bad is the one who's signing the document today. The Republicans are the ones willing to do what the Democrats wouldn't do. They thought no one would ever call their bluff. There are Republicans and Democrats on that Epstein list. That's a fact. We know, or we have high confidence, that Bill Clinton is one of the individuals on all of those lists, based on the fact that we know he traveled to Epstein's Island 17 times. We know Bill Gates went there 25 times. So you may say, well, didn't know what was going on. If they were there once, if they were there twice, I'd agree with you. Once or twice, you went to the island. Maybe you went to the island 3 times over the space of a decade. I can believe you don't know what's going on. You went there 17 times. You went there 25 times. That's Bill Clinton. That's Bill Gates. These are Democrats. The Democrats know they have people on that list. Now, I don't deny that I'm sure the Mossad already knows the people on the list. I am sure that the MI5 knew that Prince Andrew and other individuals, possibly in the royal family, possibly in business in the United Kingdom, were on the lists. They have evidence of them being at the Epstein Island. And I'm sure that the CIA was very aware that there were a bunch of Americans and American businessmen, Republicans and Democrats alike, that went to that island. And they were protecting their assets. And I have long said, and some people go, well, it was all the Mossad. Let's be adults. Don't be juvenile. It's not just the Mossad. It wasn't only the Mossad. The Israelis, they were blackmailing everyone. No, they weren't the only ones doing that. Every single intelligence agency in the world, most likely and leading, would be the CIA and the MI5 because of Prince Andrew, because of Bill Clinton, because of many of the major Americans and the fact that Epstein is an American. That's the CIA. And yes, there was probably the MI5 because of the royal family. And yes, probably some Mossad as well. And I would expect the FSB from Russia were after some individuals there. I'm sure China's intelligence agency was involved as well in blackmailing individuals and using them for their intelligence purposes. There's no innocent organization, no innocent government. Every government knew about this. Every government was aware of at least some of these individuals, and every government protected their intelligence assets that they knew were at that island. Every government has culpability. Everyone is guilty in covering this up, not necessarily on being part of the island or being working with Epstein, but we know they knew. Now we are going to know how long they knew, how long they let this happen. That is an entirely different question. And that has different people will be accountable, not just the ones that were on the island taking the actions, but also people in our government. So we need to address that. And that's where the important news is. But let me take a couple of comments here, because I do see we have a comment from Mike Has Bad Knees. And Mike says, Pam Bondi really slowed things down unnecessarily. I used to think she was incomplete. I think you mean incompetent. But I think now that she's actually corrupt. Well, part of that was Pam Bondi being bad at her job. That's true. And part of that was the political machine of DC that was slowing down the process. Some of the people working under her in the DOJ were taking their time. It's called slow walking. When a organization, whether it's the entire Department of Justice or just parts of it, when they put in all the paperwork and they're moving it as slowly as possible to delay and to obfuscate and hide things. And that happens under Republicans and Democrats, but it happened to Pam Bondi. So part of it is she's incompetent to a degree, yes. And partially, there was a lot of the DC political wall, maybe from the intelligence agencies, maybe just because some of the long-term deep state Democrats don't like Trump or Republicans. Whatever the reason, there was also that, which we know was documented, and we heard about that. We were talking about that back in February. So it's the combination of both. It's not one or the other, it's both. But I'm not saying she's, okay, you didn't mean, and Mike did clarify, he meant incompetent, not incomplete. I kind of figured that's what you meant. So I don't disagree with you. But I think the thing we need to remember is people are trying to take advantage. We're already in the 2026 midterm election. We're already in it. I know because my good friend Larry Sharpe is running for governor of New York. 2026, that's that election. I'll be talking about John Fetterman. He's already facing trouble for the 2028 election that he's going to be in. There's someone in the New York 12th district, which is Jerry Nadler's district, and there's a whole battle going on right now for his seat. So we're already in 2026, the midterm elections. We're already there. And everything that is coming out and the way that the media is putting it out is all meant to manipulate the way you're going to vote. Whether you like all of these people is immaterial. I don't care. You can like or hate anyone. I don't care about that. That's your feeling, and you have a right to whatever feeling you want to have. I concern myself about this channel looks at what is effective, what is efficient. That is ultimately always what we look at on every single politician, every candidate, all the issues. Is it effective? Is it efficient? usually from the perspective of the United States. I mean, I'm an American, so there you go. I look out for my country. I'm looking at our interest first. So I want you to be aware of the way that the media is trying to manipulate you. As an example, there's Chuck Schumer and the way that he's running around saying that he did something wonderful in the Senate when he did nothing. And in fact, if we look at the evidence and the history, he was part of the reason that we have such a delay in justice being served and understanding the full scope of the cover-up that has occurred. I think we all agree with that. Massive cover-up has happened here. And we know that some people are being very much protected, both Republicans, Democrats, British individuals like former Prince Andrew. He's no longer a prince. He's been kicked out of the royalty. He's no longer a member of the royal family. He's been kicked out because of this, most likely, because the whole thing is coming out. And you may remember I was saying back in February that one of the things I thought is part of the reason there was this delay was how the British royals, the royal family, how they were going to deal with Prince Andrew. And I think this is true, and I think eventually we will learn that King Charles and the royal family knew about Prince Andrew, either at the time or since. They knew that he was culpable. And they knew that as Trump was going to, the pressure was on, this was going to get released at some point. And even though it was slow walked, and even though Pam Bondi was incompetent, it was going to get released. And I think there was a big negotiation in the United States and UK to buy the royal family time, to distance from the news so no one directly said, well, they're putting out the file and Andrew is in trouble. There's a deal. They don't want it to be obvious. They're trying to save face. They waited a couple of months, got some distance from it. And then before this vote, before we saw the bills, the legislative bills to try and get the files released, 3 weeks ago, the votes were just in the last week and a half. 3 weeks ago, 3.5, well, about a month ago, Prince Andrew was removed from the royal family. That's the deal. That, I think, is why there was a delay. And I think when we get the information, Prince Andrew's name, or former Prince Andrew, his name will come up. And because he no longer has a connection to the royal family, he can't be sued and the royal family gets sued. That won't happen. He's no longer got the legal protection of the royal family. He doesn't have the assets of the British government. He's on his own. And I think they did that on purpose. And they just needed distance, political distance, some time, so that they could do that. And we did it because they're our biggest ally. The United Kingdom is our biggest ally, our closest ties. They asked for a big favor, which I think we're going to, I don't know what that favor was, how the United States is going to get paid back for that favor, but I think that was a top tier request and favor from the British government and the royal family to the United States to delay this, to take the heat, for Trump to take the brunt of the punch on this, to give them time to get some distance, to get rid of Andrew, to basically protect the royal family. And now that got done, now it goes forward. That, I think, is what really happened. It's not Schumer. It's not Pelosi. It's not the Democrats. It's not Hakeem Jeffries. It has nothing to do with them. They're just lying to you to get your donation, to say Orange Man bad, to try and prop themselves up so that they can get reelected. That's what they're doing. Lying to your face. If someone thinks I am wrong, I am happy to hear that. If there is any Democrat that wants to argue with me, if any elected official, if Chuck Schumer or Hakeem Jeffries AOC, any elected Democrat in New York or anywhere in the country, and they want to argue this with me and tell me, oh, Mike, well, you just misunderstand, I will give them 12 hours live to have this discussion with me. I have no problem with that. Let's go through all the details. But much like every other time I ask Democrats to come onto this program to talk about the issues, I doubt any of them will ever respond. They're terrified. They're afraid. And instead, they'll tell YouTube to shadow ban this channel once again. They will make sure that it's harder to find my channel once again, because I have a reputation, a very credible, newsworthy reputation for my interviews. They don't want to do an interview with me. They know they will be embarrassed. Let's see. There are a couple of other comments here. Let's see. So Mike Has Bad Knees says, there are other actions unrelated to Epstein that I've never seen Pam Bondi do that also lead me to believe she's corrupt. I don't know about corrupt. Again, incompetent, I see. I can say she's incompetent. She's not the best attorney general we've ever had. But so that's incompetent. I can see that. I don't see corrupt. But I understand that others may see what I think of as incompetent as corruption. I have I don't need necessarily a gold bar in someone's freezer like we see with Bob Menendez. I don't need that necessarily to say, oh, they're corrupt. But I do need more than what I've seen from Bondi, but maybe I missed a news story. It's possible. Let's see. Mike also goes on to say, I think so many names and organizations are tied to Epstein, it could even negatively affect the market. Oh, it will. It will. I mean, just from the fact that Bill Gates, very, very likely, I mean, he's been there again. That's too many times. He wasn't there once or twice, he was there, what was it? I think it's been reported as 25 times. Either was 17 or 25. I sometimes get that mixed up between Bill Clinton and Bill Gates because they've been there so many damn times. That's telling me you have knowledge. You knew what was happening. That's too much to say, oh, I never saw it. You can't tell me you never saw it. You were there far too often. I can't believe that. So you take someone with Bill Gates' wealth and you take him out of the markets. If he gets sued by some of the victims and their families, and they go after the entire wealth of the Gates Foundation, do you know how much money? We're talking trillions of dollars disappearing. That means that you could see Bill Gates having to sell Microsoft, all of his investments in Microsoft, or close down his foundation. That would shake markets around the world. And that's just one person. There are others. Mike Has Bad Knees goes on to say, we will never find out who was actually funding Epstein and where his money went after his arrest and his death. He went on to say, after the arrest and the death of Epstein, we'll never find out where his money went. No, we were never going to. Let's be realistic. Some people are protected to the top tier. Some people will always be protected because of corruption. Every government is corrupt to some degree. Every country. That's the United States, United Kingdom, every African nation, whether it's China, Russia, North Korea, every government has corruption. So that means that some people will be protected and they will be protected. Some of them are protected. Again, there are intelligence, I have no doubt, there are intelligence agency assets, spies, in other words, of some sort, that many of the intelligence agencies around the world are protecting. You know, it makes sense. The CIA would go and find someone and found out, oh, you were on the island and you were diddling kids. You're now going to work for us, because otherwise we will throw you to the wolves, to the public, and your life is over. You'll be in prison and you'll probably wind up like Epstein. And they had an asset. And guess what? If the CIA did it, Mossad did it, MI5 did it, the German intelligence agencies, the French, the Italian, the Russians, the Chinese, they all had someone. Now, does that mean every spy will be protected? No, some spies are better than other spies, but some of them are very big people. They will be protected. It's a reality. I'm not saying that it's good news. I'm not telling you that's a good thing. I'm just telling you that's the reality. And we live in a real world. So I just have to mention that. It's not because I think it's good. It's just real. But I thank you, Mike Has Bad Knees, for your comments. I thank you for that. Again, I don't think this is the biggest news. The problem is, where do we go next? Now, we already see what's happening. Democrats are trying to take credit for something that Trump promised, that Republicans promised, that has come through. And Democrats are trying to steal the thunder. And now we're going to the next phase of what you see. This will become a law. The documents will be released. And like we were talking about, people are going to doubt. There's no matter how many people are revealed, the general public will say somebody has been protected. Not every name is on that list. There will always be, you will see Democrats come out, as they already have, and say that, oh my God, Trump removed his name. There's no evidence of that, but they're going to say it anyway. They're going to say Orange Man Bad used his influence, his power of the presidency, the delay in time to remove all evidence of him, even though there's no evidence of that. That's just some crazed political conspiracy theory. And they're going to say that, and there'll be Democrats that will say, oh, well, there's this other Democrat that maybe Mark Cuban as an example. Mark Cuban was there and he got his name removed. Jeff Bezos removed his name. He spent a bunch of money and protected himself, or he was working as an asset for the CIA or for MI5 or for Mossad or one of the other agencies, and they protected him, and he's going to pay them a bunch of money or do something with, I don't know, Amazon's going to do something for Israel or for England, for the United States that they wouldn't otherwise do. You're going to hear every conspiracy theory you can think of. This will not end. This will not be a benefit. I know a lot of people are saying this will be great. This will be good. This will end this. No, it won't. Politically, the real answer is we will get some people, mid-level people, maybe one or two big people, one or two, to make it look as serious as possible, like justice has truly been done. The roaches will scurry away, get into the cracks and disappear, covering their tracks, whether it's because of intelligence agencies or money or influence, whatever the reason. And we will not trust our governments. That's going to be true for the UK. That's going to be true for the United States. There will be other countries that their people will be named, whether it's people from France or for Germany. This is international. This isn't just a US issue. It's not just a UK royal family issue. There's people from around the world. And governments, as they find out their people were involved too, their government knew as well. Their government protected this person or that person for however long they did. This is going to lower the trust in governments across the globe. This is going to hurt everyone. I'm not saying it's not worth it. I'm just making sure you understand the fallout is bigger than what the average person may think. Most people are thinking, we're going to get a dozen people or 20 people or 100 people. This is going to affect trust in governments. This is going to affect the way governments operate. And some of that will be good, and some of that will be bad. Yeah, we'll correct some laws. We'll get some people out of government that shouldn't be there. And the government will double down, triple lock the doors, and find better ways at hiding some of the things that they're doing. Both will happen at the same time. This is a double-edged sword. I want you to be prepared for that. So when you see it, you are not going to lose your mind. It's not a good thing. It's just reality. And no one is telling you that, because right now everyone's positioning to leverage this as much as they can to try and say Orange Man bad, or to say that they were living up to their promise, or that they're the one responsible for whatever positive thing happens, or distancing themselves like Larry Summers, who's now distancing himself. Well, there's going to be good and bad in this. That's all I can say. And you may be happy about that. You may not. I just want to be honest with you, because the mainstream media will not be honest with you. They're not telling you the truth. They are hiding this from you. And I think that's very aggravating. And I'm happy to hear, like Mike has bad knees, and Joanna, she said, oh my God. Look, I'm happy to hear what you guys think about this. And if you think I'm wrong, I'm happy to hear it. Tell me why. This is interactive, just like I was taking comments from Mike has bad knees and from Joanne and from John Lashcombe. I'm happy to take your comments as well. And if you say, Mike, I don't agree, fantastic. I'm happy to hear it. Okay. Let me move forward again. And right now, we are in the 2026 midterm elections. Oh, wait a minute. Before I go further, I did have another comment. This is from Mike Has Bad Knees. He says, transparency from the government is more important than anything. Mostly. I want more transparency in the government. There are certain things, nuclear files, spies killing spies. There are certain covert things that I think should be covert. That's true, in my opinion. You don't have to agree, but I think there are certain aspects of what governments do every day that we shouldn't know about. But the majority, especially in the United States, the overwhelming majority, if I had to put a number on it, 90% of everything that the government is doing, we should know about. It should be transparent as daylight. And then there's that 10% of what the government does that we shouldn't know about. The backdoor deals that actually save people's lives. Like, we weren't in the conversation, as an example of what I mean. The United States, the public, were not privy to the private conversation between the leaders of India and Pakistan when Donald Trump negotiated with them to end their war. We know that Donald Trump was critical. We know that he used the tariffs as a weapon, as a cudgel, and the fact that the United States wouldn't back either of those countries. We know that. We don't need to know the exact details. We don't need to know every word that was said or how the conversation went on. I'm sure that within another 9 months or 6 months, India may get an extra business deal that'll get approved, and that'll help their economy. And Pakistan will get an extra package of aid, government-funded, U.S.-funded aid that'll be dropped off into Pakistan, and that'll help their country. I'm sure things like that are part of the deal. We don't need to know those details. That's business as usual. American people don't need to know that. But most things we do. So I think you're right. More transparency is good. The fact is, the Trump administration is the most transparent presidency in my lifetime. I'm almost 60. I'm very close to 60. I may not look it, and I hope I don't look it. I don't think I do, other than the fact that I have a bunch of gray hair. But I believe that we've never had a president who has promised so much and done so much of what he promised in so little time. There's no comparison. It's why the media was losing their mind for the first 120 days of the Trump administration as the 45th president. They didn't know if they were coming or going. They didn't know what to respond to. Democrats didn't know what to argue about because too much was happening. No one was able to understand the scope of all the changes that were happening because everything was transparent. And we got to see how badly Pam Bondi was doing her job. We got to yell at Bongino. We got to yell at Kash Patel. We got to see what RFK was actually going to do and what success he would have in trying to run the CDC and healthcare in America, making America healthy again. We actually got to see some concrete efforts on that. There's no presidency that's been that transparent. You can hate Trump, you can love Trump, doesn't really matter. Again, I don't care how you feel, but in terms of efficiency, effectiveness, which includes transparency, there is no comparison. Obama was never this transparent. Never. Biden was never this transparent, or whoever was running the government for Biden. Never this transparent. In fact, that's part of the lack of transparency. The news media knew from day one, actually in 2019, they knew that Joe Biden was having mental issues, that he was having breakdowns. They covered that up so that he could win the 2020 election, so that he had a chance to get reelected. They lied to you because they didn't give the transparency we normally get. They hid it from you. And they hoped you wouldn't notice until they couldn't hide it anymore. And then they weren't like, oh, let's do an investigation. Who could have known that? How could we ever have guessed? So, yeah, we are getting transparency. I don't know how much more we will get than where we are. But thank you, Mike, for asking about that and bringing that up. I hope my answer is interesting, at least. Whether, again, not everyone agrees. I know a lot of people who are new to the channel, you go, but Mike, all of the people who watch you don't agree 100% with everything that you say. No. And thank God they shouldn't. I don't want people to agree with me 100%. No one should agree with me 100%. I don't know if I agree with me 100% on everything that I'm going through. I do a lot of predictions here. I look at consequences and I do calculations on what is the most probable thing that will happen as a consequence. And sometimes I want to be wrong. Sometimes I am wrong. So no one should be 100%. Yes, people disagree with me on this channel. That's okay. That's for the new people. All right. Let me move forward. I'm still paying attention to the comments, as always. And I just want, hang on one second. I just need to take a look at something else real quick. Okay. Just making sure I didn't miss anything over on Rumble. I know sometimes the Rumble, if someone does a Rumble rant, it doesn't always show up immediately on my side, just so you guys know. So I was going to go, we're in the 2026 midterm elections at this moment. We have people like Elise Stefanik, who's come out. She's one of the biggest names that have come out to say, oh, I'm running in 2026. Larry Sharpe is another. The difference between the two, Elise Stefanik is a sitting congresswoman. She has a huge treasure trove of money. She's got a campaign war chest to be able to use to try, and that's part of the $2 million that she has that she's now spending to try and gain some favorability. And she's been in trouble. I mean, she's, according to Siena, she has consistently been at least 15 to 20 points behind Kathy Hochul, who is someone that is not well liked in New York State. I mean, she's not a well-received governor. She's has huge negatives, and she's beating Elise Stefanik. And there's a couple of reasons for that. So that's why Elise is had to come out early and why she had to raise $2 million up front. And now she's spending her money crazy. It's like it's on fire to try and get some positive momentum out there. This is why she did an early Thanksgiving with, what was it, 9 chairmen, Republican GOP chairs of counties across New York. She did that. And that was a big op. That was a photo op. Big photo op. And by the way, I knew several of the GOP chairmen from Central New York. I know several of them. I have their phone numbers. They're personal. I know them personally. I don't have anything against them going to do that, but it was a photo op, and she's spending money on photo ops and stories because she's in trouble. Most people who are mentioning that they're running right now are people who generally need the money and need the exposure, either because they're a third-party candidate like Larry Sharpe, who is, he's somewhere around 4 to 10% voter awareness at this time, somewhere in that range. And obviously, the more time he has on the campaign trail, the more people he can get to vote for him. He can get donations, he can get matching funds, he can get to $3 million. That is one of his targets, and I think he could realistically do it. That's why he's out early. But most of the people who are announcing early are people who have no shot. These are people, they're either first-time candidates or they're bad candidates, and they need money, and they need attention, and they need to come out now. And several of them actually, and this happens a lot in some highly contested races, some people are just doing it so they can get the publicity. And it's hard for the public to know the difference. Is this someone who's just a third-party candidate and they're just trying to raise money so that they can have a fighting chance? Or is this someone who's just there for the limelight? Are they there for just the attention? They're just trying to find a way to make more money. They're using the election as an advertising campaign. There's a difference between the two. This guy that I have on the screen right now, I believe, is doing an ad campaign. I don't think he's legit. I don't think he's serious because he's just like David Hogg. See, this guy is Cameron Kasky. And like David Hogg, Cameron Kasky is one of the survivors of the Parkland school shooting, the Marjorie Stoneman mass school shooting back in 2018, excuse me. And so he's one of the survivors. Grew up, got his degree from Columbia, and he's in New York now. Originally from Florida, now he's in New York. Fantastic, great. And he is one of the co-creators, along with David Hogg, for March for Our Lives. And that is a anti-Second Amendment organization. They want to take your guns. They want to take your guns and take away your right to own a firearm. I don't like that. I do not agree with March for Our Lives. I don't think they're effective. I don't think they're efficient. I don't think they're productive. I don't think they care about American rights. I don't think they understand the nature of what they do. And I most of all think that they're grifters. I think they are that the things that March for Our Lives and David Hogg, they grift money on a regular basis. And I think that this kid, his name, and I call him a kid because he's younger than me, this young man, Cameron Kasky, I think he's a grifter. I think he created March for Our Lives, the anti-Second Amendment organization, along with David Hogg, so that they grift money. They can get as much money as they could from the DNC. Now, David Hogg, obviously, they have no real careers. They use March for Our Lives. They get a bunch of federal funding and donations, and that's what they live off of, apparently. That's to the best of my knowledge. And David Hogg actually went a little bit further. Just to remind you about David Hogg, this year, this was It's been, no one's been talking about it because it's been a crazy year. But earlier this year, David Hogg was elected as one of the vice chairmen. There was 7 of them. There's 7 vice chairmen for the DNC, the Democratic National Committee, Convention Committee. And one of the seats was David Hogg. And David Hogg, the first thing he did within the first week of becoming a vice chairman of the Democratic Party is he started grifting. He was grifting hard. He was trying to move a couple $1 million into March for Our Lives so that he could get that money along with Mr. Kasky. And he was using it to build influence and his donor base. And that got him into a lot of trouble. That got him in an argument with Martin, what's his last name? Kevin Martin, who is Ken Martin, the guy on the right here, who is the chairman of the DNC. And so they had arguments back and forth. You had David Hogg saying that, no, I'm just young and progressive and I don't like the Second Amendment, and you just don't understand, because that's what progressives and Democrats always say. You just don't understand. I'm young. I'm the new voice. I'm one of those Democratic Socialists. I'm a progressive. You just don't understand how I do business. Okay. And meanwhile, everyone's doing the accounting and counting the money, and they're like, you're grifting money. And so they were stuck with David Hogg until the next election cycle, or they changed the rules, because Democrats love to change the rules. They did it to Bernie. They did it to RFK. They love to change the rules at the last minute. In fact, they did it to Hillary twice, that they changed the rules at the last minute to Hillary Clinton, and they did it to Bernie, and they did it to RFK, and they did it to David Hogg. After the fact, after the election, they changed the rules, and then they said, oh, yeah, you were elected, but you're not elected. You were elected by the members of the Democratic Party, but that doesn't count. So you're not the vice chairman. You don't have a right to have access to the donor base. You don't have a right to pull millions of dollars to March for Our Lives and your private personal income stream. And you have to run again. He already ran once. It's an election. He had competition. He had to run for it. And they said, no, you got to run again. Even though they already told him, you're not going to win. Doesn't matter if you run or not. If you run again, fantastic, you're going to lose. Spend as much money as you want. You're not going to win because you're being kicked out. Effectively, this was the nicest way that they could say, we're kicking David out. We're kicking him by the ass, and we're saying goodbye. And we're not looking back. Get out of here. Because he's a grifter. Because he doesn't actually have any serious position. His answer is, if you have a chance, you can see when he was speaking to Lily Tang Williams up in New Hampshire, and she embarrassed him with one statement, with one question. Lily Tang Williams, who I've interviewed before, she's a wonderful woman. Know her, one of the most dedicated constitutionalists I have ever met, and massive advocate for the Second Amendment. I respect her a lot. And she's a naturalized citizen from China, and embarrassed David Hogg with one question. And that was at the same event that the libertarian, why am I forgetting his name now? I've interviewed him. I've met him several times in person. I've interviewed him. He ran for vice president. The libertarian vice president was in a debate with David Hogg and embarrassed him. And I could have a debate with David Hogg. I would embarrass him as well. The data that I remember from the last 20 years of talking about the Second Amendment, talking about the red flag laws, talking about mass shootings and school shootings. I have more data that I have forgotten about than David Hogg has ever remembered, because David Hogg is a grifter, in my opinion. He isn't serious. Doesn't want to help people. He wants to help himself. And if you are in a business with someone like David Hogg, who I think I have established pretty clearly now is a grifter, his history has shown that, then I have to believe that Cameron Kasky, who is a business partner with David Hogg, March for Our Lives, they work together on that. If they are working together and you can see this man is a grifter, David Hogg, I have to question Cameron Kasky as well. I have to say that I don't think he's very serious. I think that Cameron Kasky is running for the New York 12 district, which is Jerry Nadler's district. Jerry Nadler, a Democrat who's been sitting in that office for 32 years, far too long. And just like Nancy Pelosi, just like so many Democrats, they're leaving. They're getting kicked out. They're too old, and they should have been gone a long time ago. The old guard of Democrats moving away. And now we're getting the new guard, which are people like AOC, Ilhan Omar, Anna Presley. The far left radicals are taking over the Democratic Party. And Cameron Kasky is one of those radicals. I believe I had it here. He announced himself on video He announced himself on video on social media yesterday. His platform, what is he running on? Universal health care. Well, that's a progressive issue. That's a socialist issue, and it doesn't work. Just ask Canada, ask the United Kingdom. It doesn't work. That's why they're rich, come to America for health care, because universal health care doesn't work. He wants to abolish ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement. He wants open borders. He wants you to reward criminals because he feels it, because he doesn't believe in borders, because he thinks that they have a right to your stuff. Mind you, he's not letting those. He lives in Midtown Manhattan. He lives in one of the most expensive parts of New York, not just New York State, New York City. He's a wealthy kid. He's done well for himself. He's not opening up his door to take in illegal aliens. He's not housing illegal aliens. He's not buying them apartments or houses or feeding them. You are. He wants your taxes to pay for his idea. He believes in open borders. He believes in you paying for his progressive ideology. And of course, he wants to prevent gun. I love how they say this. He wants to prevent gun violence. No, he doesn't. He wants to take away your guns. He wants you defenseless. He wants you at the mercy of the government, his government, or his idea of government. He wants you defenseless so that you will obey, that you will be forced to comply because you have no other choice, which is what the Second Amendment is there for, to give you a choice so that the government can't force you to comply. Because when the government does things, they always get it wrong. Remember when the government was forcing people to comply with their medical mandates? And now we know that what they said then, what people like, what's her name? CNN, the woman, nightly news show, makes $25 million a year. God, I'm forgetting everyone's name. When the news media are telling you, oh yeah, you can't transmit the disease. You won't be affected. You're going to have a higher survival rate. Those were all lies. They were on all the news media. They were being pushed out there everywhere. And you were told, you have to obey. You're a science denier. You don't know what you're talking about. You're not a doctor. You're not a scientist. You can't read English to read the actual scientific papers that prove they were wrong. You didn't see the interview with the pharmaceutical executives when they are being questioned by governments, in particular in Sweden, by the governments of other countries, and they are saying, no, that's a lie. Yeah, it's transmittable. You can catch the disease, you can transmit the disease, and it doesn't necessarily increase your survival rate unless you happen to be in the highest categories of risk. If you happen to be 70 with 2 comorbidities, then yes, it might help you. But if you happen to be a 15-year-old kid, it's not going to do anything for you because you're going to survive no matter what. And this is what David Hogg wants you to suffer. And this, I believe, based on the initial data, that's what Cameron Kasky, who's running for the New York 12th District, Congressional District, I believe he apparently seems to believe that same thing. He's, of course, one of those people who's pro-Hamas. He loves Hamas. He's a pro-Palestine, which means pro-Hamas, pro-terrorist supporter. This is who's going into Congress. He's not the only one. But this is the ideology of those who are going into government now. And the only good news I can tell you is, if we're lucky, he's a grifter, not a believer. If we're lucky, he's like David Hogg. He's there for the money. Which means if he gets enough attention, he raises up enough money for his campaign and it fails and he leaves, he gets enough donors for his program, the March for Our Lives, he'll go away. He'll get a bunch of new money in, a bunch of new donors in, a bunch of people who believe in making you defenseless so that you must comply with the Democratic and Socialist ideology. And then he'll just go away quietly because you never heard of him before. That's how ineffective he is. And there's no reason why we should hear about him or know anything about him going forward. By the way, Cameron, if you see this and if you disagree with this, any part of it, I will give you as much time as you wish. You can do an interview with me. I have interviewed many people running for Congress throughout the country and throughout New York State for 20 years. I'll be happy to do an interview with you about this congressional race and how serious you are or not. And I'm more than happy to give you as much time as you need to answer any question. I'll be happy to do that. I've interviewed national vice presidential candidates. I can interview you. I've interviewed members who have been since elected. You're not the first person I know who's run for Congress. I did too. So don't think that I'm not good enough for you to interview. You need me. You need people like me to actually interview you to see if you're credible. I don't think he is. I am willing to change my mind. I am willing to be proven wrong. I do not believe I will be. Maddow, that's it. Rachel Maddow. Thank you. That Alabama Barbie. Hey, Alabama, you're up a little late. Alabama Barbie's with us and corrected me. That was Rachel Maddow. That's the name I was looking for, who was on nightly news telling you that you had to obey, you had to comply because the science told her that you couldn't get sick, that you were saving lives. And today, Rachel Maddow doesn't talk about how wrong she was because the science didn't say that. Politicians said that. The science didn't say that you're going to save lives by getting a jab. That's what politicians said. And if we didn't have any guns and if we didn't have freedom of speech, we wouldn't have had a choice. Like many, many other countries around the world, most people didn't have a choice. We did. And I don't think Cameron would like you to have a choice. Matter of fact, I shouldn't call you Cameron. I don't know you personally. Mr. Caskey, I don't believe, would like you to have that choice. And I believe that Mr. Caskey is just as much of a grifter as his partner, business partner, David Hogg. Matter of fact, I remember talking about this. By the way, for those who don't know, when I say I've been doing this a long time, this is 2019. A few changes, a few differences back then between then and now on the channel. But this is me talking about, this is Governor DeSantis was talking about the Parkland study. There was a study of the Parkland Marjorie Stoneman shooting. It took a year for them to actually put together a study on what were the results. What's the most effective way to protect kids in schools? And this is coming from a school that had a mass shooting. So going forward, what was the best way that they could protect those kids from mass shootings going forward? This is something that David Hogg will never tell you about. His school, their study, this is 2019. I covered it then. The mainstream media doesn't talk about this. This is what I said back. This is what we talked about then.
We've seen that there was a study done that took an entire year, evaluated everything. The response time, how the response was reacted to, what are the potential benefits and detractions, and they evaluated that having armed resource officers in the school is a deterrent. Not only is it a deterrent, it is the fastest means of being able to stop an incident once it does occur. They're not presuming that getting rid of the guns is going to stop it. They're not presuming that having someone who is armed there is going to stop it, because it won't. What they're looking at is, how do you mitigate the number of individuals who are wounded and killed if an incident starts? And having someone there sooner than later is one of the most critical things to save lives.
So that's how you actually save lives from a mass school shooting. And we have seen evidences over and over and over again. This was true before the Parkland shooting. This is true after the Parkland shooting. And this is true when we look at the Tennessee trans shooter as an example. If we look at some of the shootings in Minnesota more recently, it's always the same thing. The sooner you get someone to confront that shooter, someone who is armed, someone who also, the good guy with a gun, which is 3 million. 3 million times a year, a good guy with a gun saves Americans' lives. That's a fact that comes from the Obama administration, their study in the White House in 2013. 2013. When you had Andrew Cuomo screaming about the New York SAFE Act that doesn't save anyone's life, Obama did a study because he wanted to use that as a way to say that, oh, no, the Second Amendment's bad, we need to ban it. And the study told him there are 3 million times a year that a firearm saves Americans' lives. So he buried the story instead. The study still exists. We covered that too. Yes, I've been doing this that long. I covered that news event and that study at the time. And back in 2019, knowing that and reading the entire Parkland study on the shooting, the Marjorie Stoneman shooting, the answer was we need more SROs, officers on a campus, on the school grounds that are armed. And depending on the size of the school, not just one, not just two, could be 5. Depends on how many students are there. Because having them there will save lives. Because the most dangerous time is the first 3 minutes. The maximum number, almost always, the maximum number of people who die are usually between the first minute and the first 3 minutes. The sooner that you can have someone with a firearm actually show up, that mass shooting ends. one way or another. It ends every single time. And the sooner you get there, the more people that live. That's what Marjorie Stoneman School said. That's what David Hogg's school, Cameron Kasky's school, that's what they said. Cameron Kasky, David Hogg are going to tell you, well, we just need to get rid of the guns. Criminals don't care what the law says. Criminals and the criminally insane don't care if you can't have this type of gun. They don't care. And they make up their own weapons. We all that in Columbine too. They make up IEDs. So you can't tell me, oh, well, we stopped them. We made a law. They're not going to make a bomb. They're not going to steal someone's firearm and go in and cause harm. That's just not the truth. That's not realistic. That's not someone who's attached to reality. And yet again, why should Cameron Kasky, running for the New York 12th District to replace Jerry Nadler, why should he not be elected? Because he doesn't understand the reality that criminals don't follow the law. And if he cannot understand that basic principle, he doesn't deserve to be in Congress, in my opinion. And it means to me that since I have to believe if he has more than room temperature intelligence, which I'm not sure of, but if he does have better than room temperature intelligence, he knows this, and that means he's grifting for money like David Hogg. He's not serious. He's not trying to save lives. He's trying to make money. That's why he's running for Congress. That's my opinion. You may disagree. Cameron Kasky, if you are interested, no problem. I'll have you on any day. I'll have you on every week. We can argue about politics every week if you want. You have an open invitation to this channel to refute anything and everything that I have said. And I will put it on live, so there is no edit, so there is no way that I can take you out of context. Let's have the conversation. More than willing to do so. Can't get better than that. The New York Times won't give you that offer, that's for sure. By the way, folks, if you've made it this far, which is about an hour and a half into the program, I appreciate and thank you for that, by the way. And I just want to quickly remind you that, as you see scrolling down here, we are raising money for the Jericho Project because I don't believe that Zoran Mandami is going to help anyone. I don't believe that more and more and more promises of a perfect future is going to actually help the homeless or families or veterans. And I think that communities will, because I have been homeless before. And I've talked about it on this channel many, many times. And I know that the thing that helps me the most, the thing that helped me turn around my life were individuals, not the government. The government didn't help me. The government and government programs didn't turn my life around. People did. Individuals did. And that's why I find it so important to make sure to help small organizations and people that help people who are homeless or veterans and families. That's why I always try and work and help these groups. And I've been doing it for decades. I just don't put my name on it because it's not about me getting famous. I'm not trying to. I'm trying to help them. And this is something where, yeah, I'm putting my name on it. And hopefully that will allow me to raise $2,000, 50% of every single super chat, every single Rumble rant, every single Patreon member, every purchase of a mug or t-shirt or whatever at Zazzle, wherever, PayPal, if you send me a PayPal, 50% of everything that I net will go to the Jericho Project, January 2026. I want it to be $2,000. I would love to be able to give them a check for $2,000 to start the year off in a better position than whatever the hell Zoran Mandami and the Democratic Socialists and their socialist ideology are going to do. Because I've seen socialism in Moscow when I lived there for a year and a half. And I can tell you, the Soviets didn't end homelessness. They had their veterans that were suffering just as much, or if more, than what we're seeing in California right now. And Mandami is trying to make New York San Francisco of the East Coast. And I don't think that's going to be good for the homeless, because we don't have the warm weather like California does. It's just not going to be good. So I want to help people as much as I can. And your help gets us there. And if you can't afford $1.50 for a month for the Patreon, yes, $1.50. It's not a lot of money because it's not supposed to be. But if you can't afford the $1.50 a month for the Patreon, if you can't afford to buy a mug or to do a super chat, that's fine. Hit the like button. Hit the share. Most importantly, hit the subscribe. Let me get to 2,000, 5,000 subscribers. This way I can get a sponsor, and that sponsor can help me pay Jericho Project to get them that money. That's fine. Get me the subscriptions, and that will get me the sponsors that will allow me to take that sponsor's money and to give it to the Jericho Project. I'd be happy to do it that way too. Okay. So yes, I do have to mention these things because, again, YouTube isn't going to say it for me. Google doesn't want you to know that a black Republican is out there and actually understands the politics that's going on in this nation and in this state. They just don't like that. They want you to think we don't exist. We do, in large numbers. Okay, let me go on. The show's going fast. It's only about a 2-hour show, so we're almost done, folks. And thank you for spending some time on your middle of the week, hump day, Wednesday. Thank you for that. So another story that just came out, it's an exclusive story. You may have heard a little bit about this. I think it deserves to get more attention. It will most likely be buried. Again, the left-leaning news media has run away from this story. Last that I had checked, they didn't want to touch this. They don't want to share this news. They don't want you to hear about this so you can evaluate it. But there is a Muslim group. This is an organization which is CAIR, C-A-I-R. It was created in part by the Muslim Brotherhood. Yes, you may remember that name. This is from under the Obama administration. Remember the Arab Spring? Well, the Muslim Brotherhood helped to spread ISIS and Al-Qaeda throughout the Middle East, helped to inspire and create terrorists. That's what the Muslim Brotherhood does. And the Muslim Brotherhood created CAIR. And I always forget the full name of it. It is, what is CAIR's full name? I always forget what their name stands for. I forget. It doesn't matter. But the Muslim Brotherhood created this organization in the United States. And the two reasons why they seem to have done that is to raise money to be given to various terrorist organizations around the world and to inspire and create more members of various terrorist organizations. Now, the members of CAIR will tell you that, well, that's Islamic. There is no denying. Yes, they were, in fact, created in part by the Muslim Brotherhood. And the Muslim Brotherhood were a bunch of terrorists helping to inspire and support other terrorists around the world. That's just a fact. They don't have to like it. And CAIR doesn't have to like my opinion of their organization. But that doesn't make me they're going to say, oh, you're an Islamophobe, you're an Islamophobe, and I hear that all the time. That's a distraction that doesn't answer anything. That doesn't address the facts as they exist. So don't tell me that. And this organization, created by a terrorist-backed organization, CAIR, was giving out checks for $1,000 to students who would have riots at colleges across America. In particular, the California chapter of CAIR. They have chapters in various states, including in New York. But it's the California chapter. They were sending out checks for about, they called them scholarships, or they were zero interest loans. They had a lot of different mechanisms to send out the money, but essentially they were giving out $1,000 to students after they created a riot, large or small, in colleges. And that includes over at Harvard, that includes over at Columbia here in New York. And in particular, this is, of course, being reported by a New York news organization, the New York Post. So they were focused on Columbia College, but it wasn't limited to Columbia College. So students who would go in, and they were part of the pro-Hamas movement. And if those students were to go in and to threaten Israeli students, Jewish students, if they were to go in and try and take over buildings on the college campus, which is illegal, if they were to create riots, destroying property, trying to take over property, attempting arson on the properties, they would get, after they did that, that student would then get money from this organization. It's insane. It is insane. And I am pissed about that. And the mainstream news media is hiding this. In California, the largest arm of CARE, web of nonprofits, they have a lot. And CARE owns a bunch, like the Muslim Brotherhood owns CARE and other ways to fund terrorism. CARE owns a bunch of other nonprofits. All these nonprofits try to get tax money from you through the government, through Democrats, so that they can fund these activities or to reward these activities. And in this case, they're not funding these kids to commit acts, these violent acts of crime, these riots. The left is perfectly fine with violence. They're perfectly fine with acts of terror as long as it is being done by their people for their ideology. That's Antifa, that's CARE, that's some of these students, the pro-Palestine, which is really the pro-Hamas movement. Yeah, they don't mind any of that. They're perfectly fine with that. You don't hear David Hogg saying, "Oh, no, Antifa, you should stop. BLM, you should stop rioting. Don't burn down that city." You don't hear them say that. They don't care. But if you have any opinion other than them, that's when they send these guys after you. CARE may not like me. I don't care. So their San Francisco and LA organizations raised $100,000 to donate to campus radicals, to specifically to people who got in trouble, that were arrested or kicked off their campuses, either temporarily or permanently, because of rioting on campuses. Now, I want to be very clear. We're not talking about the First Amendment. If it's about somebody who wants to protest, go right ahead. You have every right to protest. If you're an American citizen, you have every right to protest whatever it is. If you want to say that Rocky Road is better than butter pecan, that is better than vanilla ice cream, go out into the streets and shout your truth. Go for it. I have no problem. I don't care. You want to say the earth is flat? That is your truth. That is your right as an American citizen. Go out and convince the converts. Go and protest, globe factories. I don't care. That's your right. If you commit an act of violence, and that's the thing, you always hear that these college conflicts, they call them a conflict, they call them a protest. They will soften the news every single time. They will tell you that crimes, absolute crimes, it's not a crime. They're just protesting. No, they're committing a crime. They're trying to burn down a building. That's called arson. That's attempted arson. Oh, well, no, they're just protesting. No. When you commit an act of violence, when you intimidate people, when you threaten them with violence, when you enact violence against them, when you vandalize buildings and sometimes try to commit arson on those buildings, that isn't protesting. The media, the left-leaning media, love to say, well, that was a protest. No, it's not. No, it's not. Remember the mostly peaceful in Minneapolis? And again, we saw in the colleges, in Harvard, in Columbia, at Binghamton University, at Stanford, we saw these riots happen. We saw at Cooper Union. You may recall I did a video covering Cooper Union, where a bunch of pro-Hamas rioters were chasing down Israeli students at Cooper Union. This is in New York. Chased them into the school, into the library, where a security guard saw the kids running away from the mob, and they locked the kids into the library. Literally, the security guard locked the door to make sure that these kids couldn't get in, and the Cooper Union mob of pro-Hamas protesters were trying to break down the door. What do you think they were doing that for? Did you think that they were going to go and protest? Were they trying to break down the door so that they could yell at these students? Or do you think they had some kind of malicious intent, that they were there to do some kind of harm? Legit story. You can check it out for yourself. This is a fact. It happened in New York. Cooper Union. Look it up. That's what CARE is rewarding. They send checks to the people who do that, who are trying to break down the doors, who are trying to threaten, intimidate, and harm other students just because of their religion, just because of their nationality. It's disgusting. And the thing that gets me the most upset about that is the left-leaning news media will cover it up. They will hide it from you. They will not tell you about these stories. They want you to forget these stories. What I remembered about the Cooper Union that I'm talking to you about, they want you to forget that. That was not big, major national news. It should have been. It was within the last 2 years. It was a result of what Hamas did, the act of terror that Hamas did on October 7th of 2023. There is no other way to describe it. It is inexcusable. I don't care who you are. I don't care what you think. What Hamas did on October 7th, 2023, killing 1,200 individuals, in particular, killing that day 34 American citizens, civilians, not military, civilians, killed them because they just happened to be there, then capturing another 22 American citizens, not even to count the other 234 other individuals from other countries that were all captured as hostages, tortured, sexually abused for 582 days. 582 days of torture. And Hamas systematically killed 17 of the 22 Americans. Yeah. And the news media downplayed that. Look, you can have whatever opinion you want to have about Israel. I'm not telling you they're a perfect country. There isn't one. I'm not going to tell you they're the good guys, the bad guys. I tend to believe they're better than the terrorists, but you don't have to agree with that. That's fine. But I can tell you this, the news media is hiding this stuff from you. And I have to ask you, is that in your best interest? Is that going to make you safe? Is that good for America? I don't think so. I think this is horrific news. $100,000 to reward crime. This is worse than the rewards that we are giving to illegal aliens to enter this nation. And the majority of America, 77 million people, agreed we should have mass deportations. Where is the response for something like this, where we are rewarding active, violent crime? Oh, that's so upsetting to me. It really is. By the way, I do want to thank Joel. He came in with a super chat, $5. $5 on the super chat. And that means that's another $2.50, 50% that is going to the Jericho Project to help the homeless families and children. Joel, I want to thank you, just like John Lashcombe. Thank you guys for your support on this. Thank you for helping the homeless and our veterans and families. I appreciate that. That's God. With people, if everybody who subscribed to my channel gave just $5, we'd hit our target. It doesn't have to be a lot of money, folks. I know a lot of people think I have to donate, but I got to donate so much money. I don't have $100. I don't have $200. I'm not asking you for that. I don't have $100. Okay, I understand. I don't have $100 to donate for something. I'm not asking you to do that. I mean, if you got it, fantastic. But I don't expect that. 5, 10, 20. We can get there. It's a numbers game. Now, if you happen to be financially very well off and you can do $2,000, fantastic. Send $2,000. But if you can't, and I know most of us can't, that's okay. Send 5, send 10, send 20. We will get there together. All right. Hal is with us. Hello, Hal. And Hal says, what does Hal say here? Council for his, that's it. Thank you. Thank you, Hal. I saw the comment. I just didn't read it right away. The Council on American Islamic Relations, CARE. Thank you very much, Hal. See, I love it. I have a great audience. They correct me when I forget things like Rachel Maddow's name, or I forget what is the acronym for CARE. I love it. They correct me. They make sure I get it right. And I know Hal has more than once corrected me and said, Mike, you didn't read all the studies. There's another one out there. In particular, to give him credit, it was there were 3, I was aware of 3 studies on red flag laws and their impact. And Hal realized there was a 4th. And he made me aware of it, and I read that study. So, again, I'm open to be corrected. I am open to know that there is more information out there. I thank you. I thank you guys for being part of my audience. By the way, I do want to make sure people know that Joel said that the $5 USD, that's for Jericho and for Khan. Khan is my dog. He's a 14-year-old Scotty Bichon mix. Yes, he's half Scotty, half Bichon. He weighs about 24 pounds, which means he's a little bit fat right now. He's 14 years old. I love my dog deeply. He's getting old. Medical bills are coming up. Oh, God, his medical bills. No medical bills for that dog for 13 years. Now, year 14, he's got all kinds of medical bills. But he's old. I mean, it's 7 years, dog years. So that makes him 70, 98. So, kind of makes sense. All right. Let me move on. This is pretty much the last set of stories that I'm going to be talking about tonight. Because, again, it is Wednesday. It's the middle of the week. But I did want to cover this because it's AI. AI is either the greatest thing that's ever happened to mankind, or it's going to destroy all of our economies, one or the other. And I've heard from many people, including individuals who work in tech, people who are very knowledgeable, like Lars Mapstead is one individual who owned his own technology company, and he does work in technology, as well as many other individuals. But Lars Mapstead, multimillionaire, he's one name that some people may know. And I've heard some people, they've said AI is absolutely fantastic. It's going to change the way that we do work, and it's going to change our lives, and it's going to be wonderful. And I've heard from a bunch of other people who say AI is absolutely going to destroy our culture. It's going to destroy our economies. It's going to it's going to wreck society. I've heard both. And I don't think we know enough about the impact of AI to make that decision. In fact, we still don't understand the full impact and consequences of social media. We don't understand the full consequences of cell phones that instantaneously, continuously are able to get communications. Human beings weren't built for instantaneous communication. We're still adjusting to that new capability and learning how to integrate that into society, to instantly be able to speak to someone and get responses back from them, even though they're hundreds, thousands of miles away from us. That's still something we're learning how to deal with as a society or a group of societies. And then you add in on top of that, you have the internet and the way that governments are trying to modify it and people are trying to keep it. And you have algorithms and programs that are trying to change what you see and what you can access. We're just all over the place with this. So I don't know if AI will be good or bad. I tend to believe that AI will be bad because the bias of the programmers is always in their product. So that's why we see ChatGPT tends to be more left-leaning and Grok tends to be more right-leaning. That doesn't mean everything that they do is left or right-leaning, but it's obviously the AIs and also it's misunderstandings, misperceptions of the public. People think, well, AI said it, so it must be true. This is like it used to be back in the 70s and 80s, even in the 90s. People would say, well, it's on TV, so it must be true. So if something was said on the news, no matter what it was, no matter how ridiculous or absolutely factually wrong it was, let me see they even today, but people would say, generations of people would say, no, but it was said on the news, therefore it must be true, even though it isn't. And then we saw that in social media, like in 2020, when Joe Biden said, if you get the jab, you have no concerns. He was lying to you. But people would say, oh, no, but, it was not just the president, but it was also on social media. It must be true. The laptop, Hunter Biden laptop, yeah, that's not actually real. That was just something forged by Russia, which was a lie. It is real. And we now have confirmed it. They waited 2.5 years so it would have less political impact. But everything that we thought was true about it in week 1 is true 2.5 years later. So that's social media. Now AI is doing the same thing. AI, I've done this where I've searched for something, and I know a lot of people that I've talked to, they go onto AI and they're like, well, it tells me this thing, but you're telling me it's something else. Okay, I can literally have a document that I have researched, a study that I have found, data that I know exists from the government itself, and I can ask AI, and AI will tell me, no, that's not real. That doesn't exist. Great example is if you ask AI about the $15 an hour minimum wage, ChatGPT will tell you this is a great idea. It's been super effective everywhere that it's been tried. It's good. Okay. And then if you drill down and say, okay, so tell me, what is the net result of the $15 minimum wage? Are people making more money or less money? And when you ask the follow-up question, instead of pulling from a pool of data that likes the $15 minimum wage and living wage, and it goes to the empirical data, which is a different group of information, well, then it'll actually do the math and tell you, well, in fact, when you factor in the number of people who have been fired, the number of people who had their hours reduced versus the number of people who had their income, had raises for their jobs, it winds up that on average, minimum wage, the $15 an hour minimum wage, lowers incomes by 9%. You lose 9% of your income because of the $15 an hour minimum wage, because your hours are reduced or people get fired, they get laid off, or they don't get hired, or the business closes. And when you put all of that together, you actually lose money, which is something that the mainstream media doesn't want to tell you. And Chat GPT and AI don't want to tell you that either, because the programmer that created Chat GPT also had a liberal bias and said that's not something you should really be looking at. Okay, so I'm saying all of that to get to this. So AI is a problem. Now we know, or we're hearing, and we've been hearing for the last 6 months, that AI is a bubble, very much .com bubble. Now, that's important because that doesn't mean that AI will disappear. It doesn't mean that it's not useful. The .com bubble is how we got to current modern day internet and a lot of the internet services we had. We had this, people suddenly found out about the internet and they commercialized it and it spread like wildfire. And people thought they understood all the applications for it. And they raised up a bunch of money in businesses for it, like pets.com. I think it was one of them that was selling pet food. But they didn't factor in when you sell, you could sell pet food. You don't have to have a store, so you could sell it for cheaper, except pet food has a weight. Paper has a weight. And when you ship stuff, that weight affects the price that of the product. And so they were selling things because they said, well, we don't have the overhead of electricity or a store, so we can drop down the price. And they dropped the price too much because they're like, we're online. We don't have to pay for anything. We don't have to pay for employees. We just got to push out this thing. And then they found out, no, there's still other costs still involved. And a lot of those businesses bust. That's the .com bust. I was a stockbroker at the time. That's like 2000. And that's how that happened. That didn't kill internet businesses. It changed them. AI is supposedly in a similar bubble and it's about to bust, which means that after we get past the bubble bursting, we'll still have AI, and AI will still be affecting businesses. It'll still be changing our world, but will be different than what we see right now. It'll be different than what we're dealing with at this moment. I know I'm explaining a lot here, but there's a lot to it. And the mainstream news media doesn't really say all this to you. They don't explain this. They don't give you context on this. They want you to be afraid. AI is going to destroy your job and the world's going to end and AI is going to be your master, which is a possibility. But, they go to the fear. They don't give you any details. I'm trying to give you details. That's why it takes a little bit longer. Thank you for holding on with me on this as I explain it. So everyone's saying in the next 6 months, and I do see your comment, John. I'm going to get to it in just one moment. Actually, no, let me do it now. John says he's hopeful that AI will be very similar to ATM machines when they first came out. Everyone was convinced there wouldn't be any more tellers in banks, and that didn't happen. Great example. You're correct. Very much like that, John. We're going to see after the bubble, we will see a different world, a different use of AI, but it's going to still be there. So, yeah. So when people say there's this bubble, it doesn't mean AI is going away. It just means things are going to change. And some businesses, some of the ways we're using AI will stop. They're ineffective. They're inefficient. There are better ways to do what they're doing. And some of these things will end, and businesses that invested in these products in this way will end, and there will be new ones down the road. That's what's going to happen. So Elizabeth Warren, knowing that for the last 6 months, with all of this background, and Elizabeth Warren is one of the people who has been trying to convince other senators and members of Congress, she's been trying to convince them that the United States government should micromanage the internet for you. She wants to have the government interfere and control what you can see and do on the internet. Basically, she wants to do the British internet service, Ofcom, OFCOM, which is basically the British government controlling what people can and can't do online. And Elizabeth Warren is one of the people who want to do that here in the United States. So she goes and she hates Donald Trump, of course. And she's saying that when the bubble bursts, Donald Trump is going to bail out the tech executives. And she thinks that's evil. Of course, he's going to do it because Orange Man bad. He's a billionaire. They're tech geniuses and billionaires. And he's going to do it to protect his tech buddies. It has nothing to do with the economy, how it's going to affect the United States. It's none of that matters. She just says, Orange Man bad. Orange Man is he's going to grift and be greedy and help other evil businesses, except any business that actually helps Democrats. Those are good businesses. As Ken Martin said, those are the good billionaires because they donate to Democrats, as opposed to all the evil billionaires and business owners that donate to anyone else but Democrats. Okay, so that's Elizabeth Warren's position. And she's saying, okay, Trump's going to give money to these EV bailouts. By the way, she voted for the Obama bailouts. She voted to bail out the banks. She voted to bail out the car industry. She voted to help GM, that Obama bought GM. Do you remember that? With your tax dollars. By the way, that investment lost money. The government wasted your money. The government bought GM and lost money. It's ridiculous. So this is Elizabeth Warren. She has no idea what she's talking about. But she wants you to think she does. Why? Orange Man bad. That's the thing she wanted to say. But she's saying Orange Man bad to make money. She wants to be reelected. She wants you to be afraid. Oh my God, the AI is going to blow up. And Trump, he's not going to help me. He's going to help the big businesses, which could in fact help you. He's going to bail out the businesses, which would create new businesses that you could work at. She doesn't want to think about that part. No, it's just evil Orange Man bad. And if the president is trying to do what Obama did, no, but he's not Obama, so he's evil. He's a Republican, so he's evil. Orange Man bad. Okay. So from Elizabeth Warren's point of view, I don't understand how she can say helping businesses that help Americans is a bad thing when she voted for trillions and trillions of dollars on failed policies, green energy, Solyndra, A123 systems. These are companies that Elizabeth Warren was more than happy. They're green, renewable batteries and businesses. And she was all for the United States government under Obama to dump all of your money into those companies and lose every single cent. Every single cent. And she was happy with that. She's a hypocrite. She's a hypocrite. But there's a worse hypocrite. And this one is even, I think, even more obvious. Not everyone's seen it. Now, I'm going to play this clip. This is from AOC's channel itself. So I'm getting this directly from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. New York 14th District, horrible member of Congress. She's an idiot. Yes, AOC, you're an idiot. I don't care how you look. People voted for you because of your looks, not for your intelligence. And that she's a Latina. Ooh, she's got brown skin. So what? Like that means anything. Can't call her an idiot. She's a woman. Like that means anything. those two things are not connected. Anyway, I won't get there. Let me move forward. So I'm going to play you AOC. Now, this is so self-serving. It is so political. It pisses me off.
Human interactions with these chatbots. I say this because I want to say also on the record that should this bubble pop,
the AI bubble. So she wants to be official here. If the AI bubble pops, and she's being official, okay.
And I say this for my colleagues here, should this bubble pop?
Your colleagues already know this. Your colleagues who are in the congressional hearing with AOC right now, and their staffers who are talking to the other members of Congress, so you don't have to say this to them. They already know this. You're saying it to the public. So she's already being performative because she knows. The other members of Congress, if they want to know this, they already know. That's why they're in the committee. That's why they have staffers. That's why there's a report. So she's being very, very performative, but you're not supposed to notice that. You're not supposed to think about that because, you're the member of public. You think that she's somehow smarter than every other member of the committee and Congress in general, and she's not. Okay, let's go on.
My colleague from Massachusetts mentioned the level of AI lobbying that occurs here in Congress.
As opposed to the level of lobbying of every other or special interest group you can name. Oil and gas, renewable energy, you can go up and down, pharmaceuticals, you can go through all the lists. But yeah, there's an AI lobby. There's a lobby for everything. There's a lobby for ketchup. I'm not kidding. There's a lobby for ketchup, for mustard, for meat, for eggs. There's a lobby for everything. If money from the government touches that industry, they got a lobby. So that's not new.
Should this bubble pop, we should not be entertaining a bailout.
Why not? Now, to be fair, I agree. We should not bail out AI companies. By the way, you can go back on my channel. You will see videos. I said we should not bail out the banks. I said we should not buy GM. I said we should not support renewable energy companies. I've said over and over again, I ran in 2014, telling people that the government should not be supporting and subsidizing small businesses, private businesses. I'm against that. I've always been against that. And I don't, unless there is some extreme example of why we should be doing that, and there really isn't, like GM isn't extreme enough for us to go in and to buy GM. The government should never have protected that. Just that's not a reason. So I agree, yes, we shouldn't back that. But that's because I historically and consistently have a political ideology that says the government should not be involved in small business or any business. The government should not micromanage the markets. And the more that the government does that, the worse we are. So that's why I say that. Yeah, there shouldn't be AI bailouts. Why is she saying it? Let's find out.
We should not entertain a bailout of these corporations as healthcare is being denied to everyday Americans, as SNAP and food assistance is being denied to everyday Americans.
Okay, so she would bail out AI companies or any company, apparently, if the money they're asking for is less than the money that we give to SNAP or to Obamacare, or if Obamacare is fully funded, if SNAP is fully funded, then she's perfectly okay with giving money to bail out any other company, including AI companies. That's stupid. First of all, that's just stupid. And anyone who says, that's such a great idea, that's stupid. Let's be very clear about that. Because one, the money for Obamacare isn't the money that goes to bailouts. two separate sets of money. They're not the same pool of money. By the way, she believes in MMT, modern monetary theory. So AOC doesn't care about this, by the way. Just so you know, she believes in MMT. She believes in UBI, universal basic income. She believes in modern monetary theory. And modern monetary theory, also known as MMT, is where government will just print money forever. They can infinitely print money, and she thinks that will have no impact on anything. It won't affect the economy. It won't affect other countries. It doesn't matter. You can just print money whenever you need it, and because we're America, it'll be okay. She's an idiot because that isn't the real world. There is something called inflation. We know this. We live through this. We're suffering it right now. That's why Senator Thune was having the argument about, do we take the money from tariffs to pay down the debt, or do we give it to individuals? Because if we pay down the debt, their dollar will go further, be better for the public. AOC says, just print more money. What's the problem? She's an idiot because she doesn't think about inflation and that each dollar is worth less money the more you print. So she doesn't have a problem with bailouts. It doesn't matter if you fund Obamacare or not. She doesn't care. It doesn't matter if you fund SNAP or not. She doesn't care. Her answer is print more money. It doesn't matter. So already her ideology doesn't match what she's saying. So something is wrong here. She's lying somewhere, because if she believes you can just print money, then print money for the AI bailout. So it's not because we don't have enough money. She's a liar. And because she's trying to make you think we have to choose between Obamacare and bailing out AI companies, that we have to choose between food stamps or AI companies. And she's lying. That is not an equivalent exchange. That is not the equation. She is lying to your face. She's emotionally manipulating the public, and she's expecting that most people don't know this, that everything I've just explained about what happened with the dot-com bubble, what's going on with the technology, that what she said, her personal economic theories, what she said about UBI and funding other organizations, she thinks most people don't know, and she's right. She also thinks most people aren't going to hear what I've just said. She knows the news media won't say it because they're going to say this in a minute and a half. They're done. What I just played of her without interruption, that's the quote that the news media is going with. Why? Because Orange Man bad. But that's not the news story. The news story is what she's saying is she's lying to you. She's emotionally manipulating you. Oh, aren't you afraid of losing your health care? Well, Obamacare is actually catastrophic care. Aren't you afraid of losing that? Well, you got to choose between AI or your health care. No, I don't. No, I don't. That's not the exchange. Oh, well, you got to choose between SNAP benefits. You want moms and kids to starve. You emotional manipulating witch. That's not the exchange. That's not the choice that's in front of us. Stop lying. Stop. She is using this to fearmonger, to say Orange Man bad, to get more votes, to say, I'm fighting against Donald Trump. All the Democrats, every Democrat at every level, local level to the national level, they're all fighting Donald Trump. First of all, you're not supposed to fight the president. That's not your job. That's not your job. And fighting the president isn't the most effective, efficient way to do your job. So stop fighting the president on everything and actually do your job, because she's not doing her job. She's wasting time and money, and she's trying to build up a nest egg of money so she can either run for senator against Chuck Schumer or more likely Kirsten Gillibrand, or that she's going to actually try and just jump ahead and just try to run for Congress and the presidency. She's going to try and run for the presidency, and she'll lose because she's an idiot. And all these things I'm talking about, and many, many other things she said that are absolutely stupid, will come up and people will not vote for her because she's not an intelligent person. She's not. She's very good as an actress, and she can be very emotional. And she counts on people saying, well, she's a woman, so you can't be mean, can't ask her a tough question. She's a woman. That's stupid. AOC doesn't know what she's talking about, and she's trying to use AI bailouts as a way to advance her political career. And she is lying to you, the American public, whether you're a Republican or Democrat, whether you think AI is good or bad, it doesn't matter. She's lying to you. And I'm calling it out. Elizabeth Warren is lying because she wants to say orange man bad. And she wants Democrats to have a better position. AOC is lying to you because she wants to emotionally manipulate you, because that's the only way she can get you to give her money and to potentially vote for her as either a senator or president. AOC, if you think I am wrong, if you think I have misrepresented any of your policies, any of your public statements that I am drawing on to come to this conclusion, come onto the program. I will give you 12 hours to refute this. I will bring up all the quotes that I am both mentioning right now and I am implying from what you have said over the past, because this will take this will take an hour or two to go through all the quotes that are relevant here to prove my point, and we can go through it. 12 hours. Come on, AOC. You're just in Queens. You're just over the bridge. You are not far from me at all. It's about half an hour, 45 minutes. You can drive, get in an Uber, and be right here in my studio in a heartbeat. I will go to your studio. It's just over the bridge. I'll jump in an Uber and I will go, and we can do this live if you think I am misleading the public. But the fact is, because you're misleading the public, because this is an emotional manipulation, because you're taking advantage of the fact that the majority of the public do not remember off the top of the head all of the lies and misstatements you have made and the fallacies of the financial statements that you have said, because the majority don't know that, you are abusive. And you do not deserve to be elected to anything. That is my opinion. As a conclusion, because you're abusing the public, because you're abusing your power, because you're abusing the fact that you're a woman and a Latina, you're using all of these factors to emotionally manipulate and blackmail the public. And that means you don't deserve to have any political power whatsoever. That's my opinion. Not everyone will agree with that. So I understand. Yeah, I know. So that being said, the very last thing, matter of fact, very last thing, John Fetterman. This will be quick, folks. This will really be quick. Okay, actually quick. John Fetterman is in trouble. The Working Families Party is pissed off. John Fetterman, since he had his stroke and has been in the Senate. Now, I have always said, and I continue to say, John Fetterman should not be a senator. He is not mentally fit to do it. He is incapable of doing the job properly. I have said that from day one. I say that today. Has he become healthier? Yes. Am I happy he's healthier? Good for him. I'm glad that he is recovered from his stroke as much as he has. I hope he will continue to recover for the rest of his life. Unlikely, but let's hope for that. Fantastic. But it is a medical fact that he is mentally impaired. That is a fact. It's not an opinion. It's not a personal attack. It is the truth. It is medical truth. And therefore, he is incapable of doing the job. That is my opinion about him. So whether he's a Republican or a Democrat, he needs to go. Period. That's my opinion. Now, since the majority of voters don't share my opinion, I'm happy that he's voting Republican. I like and I am amazed that a man who ran as a progressive, a hardline progressive at that, is so in line with Republican values. By the way, the actual amount is only 20%. 80% of every issue, John Fetterman is straight in line with the Democrats, and he votes with the Democrats. It's only about 20% of the votes, only about 20% of the issues where John Fetterman has taken a Republican line. That's it. 20%, 80-20. That's the difference. But according to the Democrats, it might as well make him alt-right. 20% is more than enough to make him an alt-right Nazi. And that's why the Working Families, which is in New York State, a few other states, which is basically the progressive wing of the Democratic Party. They're Democrats. Working Families Party they're in the Democratic Party. They run on the Democratic line in many states. They have Democratic candidates, but they're actually progressive socialists. That's the DSA. That's who they really are. But there's really no difference. No difference. So they are kicking John Fetterman to the curb. And I find this funny because, one, it's for 20% of the votes. 20% of the time. They don't like his tweets. That's what the truth is. They don't like that he is publicly disagreeing. They don't like that he voted to give Americans SNAP benefits. That's it. That's the thing that broke the camel's back. That's the straw that broke the camel's back. Is John Fetterman voted with Republicans to feed Americans who are dependent on SNAP. How dare he feed the 42 million Americans that are supposedly the number one priority of the Democratic Party? He voted to feed them, and Democrats said, you shouldn't do that. So now you can't be part of the Democratic Party. They're trying to replace him. And I think it is absolutely insane because they're trying to replace him with anybody. There is so little leadership in the Democratic Party. They have so little focus. They have no issues to stand on. They have no success. So they are leaving it open. The Working Families Party is going to an open call. Would you like to run for senator in Pennsylvania? If you do, the Working Families Party will support you. You, whoever you are, whatever your idea, you could be, as long as you are a Democrat, socialist, progressive, then you too can be part of the Working Families Party, and you can be their candidate for the senator of Pennsylvania, one of the highest offices in the entire nation. And anybody, they don't care because they have no qualifications. The only qualification you have to have besides being Democrat is obey. That's the two things that they care about. Are you a Democrat? If you're a progressive, even better, by the way. But as long as you got that one covered, checkbox 1. Checkbox 2, obey. Will you obey? Will you be a yes man, a yes woman to the party? If you are, you can run as senator. Issues? Who cares about the issues? They don't have any issues. Ideology? Obey. What are you focused on? Who cares? You're not going to do it anyway. It doesn't matter what you believe because you're going to do whatever the party tells you to do. That's why they're getting rid of Fetterman. He's not doing 100% of the time. He is not doing what the party says. Therefore, they got to get rid of him. 20%, an 80% compliance rate is not good enough because it is never good enough for the progressive wing of the Democratic Party. The Democrats are never satisfied. You have to give them 100. If you gave them 100%, they'd ask for 110. It's never enough. And John Fetterman, 80% Democrat, voting straight down the line, with all the Democrats on all the major issues, 20% against, that is too much. That is a traitor. Wow. 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 And they have it right here. Here's the quote. This is coming from, this is WESA is the organization. Any contested Senate race, especially in a critical battleground like Pennsylvania, is likely to cost 8-digit sums and attract national media attention. This is their sales pitch. You're going to get a lot of money and you're going to get a lot of attention. Do you want the job? A lot of media, a lot of attention. Do you want to do it? All you have to do is be a yes man or a yes woman. Don't care about anything else. You're going to obey, say yes. You're a Democrat. Hey, you can run for the Senate of Pennsylvania. An open talent search may seem like an improbable strategy. That's their strategy, an open talent search. This is why Democrats suck. They deserve to lose. If you're a Democrat, I feel bad for you. This is what your people say. If you're part of the DSA, the Democratic Socialists of America, you have no standards. You have none. You can't support this and say, oh, well, but we got standards. We actually stand for something. We have a focus. We have an issue. No, you don't. No, you don't. You just want yes people and a lot of money and a lot of power. That's it. Oh my, it is embarrassing. It is absolutely embarrassing to the public and the world. By the way, in polling, and they're going to have a hell of a time to do something about this, because according to the most recent poll, which came out in October, by the way, this is a Quinnipiac poll, which is credible, and they have John Fetterman 46 to 38% approval, 46 to 38. Democrats are going to have a hell of a time. And if they're willing to take Joe Anybody, you know, they got the fry guy down at McDonald's. He just got a $20, $30, $15 an hour minimum wage boost. He's going to say yes to anything you want. Hey, he could be senator. That's who they're going to put up against John Fetterman. Why not? This is embarrassing, folks. That's embarrassing. That is embarrassing. And it is an insult to the Senate of the United States. It is an embarrassment to American politics. It is an embarrassment to the American people. How dare you say it's an open call? We'll take anybody just as long as they say yes, they can be our senator, our candidate. Have some standards. You sicken me. Senator John Kennedy? Hang on one second, folks. Senator John Kennedy. You scared me. Senator John Kennedy. What's the news? Protecting our courts from foreign manipulation. Is there a news story? Hang on, I'm trying to find out. Senator John Kennedy. I'm trying to. Is it on X? Oh. By the way, folks, so what you're seeing me do is we got a comment from John Lashcombe, which I should have responded to a little while ago, about 20 minutes ago. But he's saying something was happening with Senator John Kennedy. And I know I should have reacted a little bit sooner, but I don't see anything. 11 hours ago, 10 hours ago, 2 weeks ago. Is he fine? I mean, no one's saying that he's dead. Oh, okay. Okay. An hour ago? Oh, my fault. I saw the comments. I was just not going into, I didn't see that statement, but okay. Grace says, what's happening with John Fetterman, the Working Families Party, sounds like a casting call for an indie film. It sounds like a casting call for a porno. But, that's me. That's right. That's right, Grace. You could be the next Bernie Sanders in Pennsylvania. Sign up now. Oh, okay. You were talking about, okay. I get it. All right, folks. So I think I need to walk my dog. I've been with you I was expecting to be here for 2 hours. We've been on for 2 hours and 40 minutes. So I'm 40 minutes overtime. But I think we caught a lot of information. Feel free to chop this up, share it with your friends, let them know. These are some of the things that you're not going to hear about AOC and AI. They think she's going to be helping you. No, she's not. And they think that, John Fetterman, that someone qualified, someone's actually really good is going to go and replace John Fetterman. No, they're not. There's a lot of the information that I've just shared with you tonight. You're not going to hear about any of the opposing points of view, like Cameron Kasky. He's going to go out there and he's going to cry and be like, I survived a gunshot. I want to go to Congress so I can get rid of the Second Amendment and make sure that the government can control your life forever, just as long as he gets to make money. Okay, no one else is going to say this to you. They're going to lie. They're going to hide these things. You deserve to know the truth so that you can make your own mind up. Do whatever you want with the information. It's up to you. All right, folks. It's Sunday. It's Wednesday. It's about to be 10 o'clock. I want you to be well. I want you to get some great rest. Get through the rest of the week. On Sunday, 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I'm going to be doing my live stream as I always do. And I hope to see you there. Until then, I want you to be well. I'll